It is the day before New Year's Eve 2023, and these are the books I read this year. It will be novels, non-fiction, and manga. So, among the novels, I read the two last parts of Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy. This one is Foundation and Empire from 1952, I think, and the last one, Second Foundation, from 1953. That's my favorite, and I listened to that one at Bokus Play. Brilliant reader of that book. This one was a bit slow, I think, but the last book was brilliant. I think that in general, Isaac Asimov writes very good dialogues, which are like fights. They are like arguments where you think that just when someone has won the argument, someone else retorts, and you're like, oh, you didn't think about that. And then I continued with science fiction. This is Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, two Russian brothers, who wrote Hard to be a God in 1964. And I found this one just because at the second-hand English bookshop, the owner had written a little category of his own called Experimenting by Humans. And that sounded interesting. So this book is about a person from contemporary Earth who goes to a planet which is stuck in some medieval society, which is very cruel and where there are lynchings and tyrants and so on. And the question is, of course, should he be a god? Should he interfere? As e-books, I read the Swedish author Astrid Lindgren, Lillebror och Karlsson på taket. Karlsson on the Roof in English, from 1955. That was for a queer course at the university, so we did a queer reading of it. And for the same course, I read Olga Ravn, a Danish author, Celestine, from 2015. Yeah, the last fiction book I read was Rudyard Kipling, The Jungle Book, which I actually hadn't read before, despite I love Disney's version of The Jungle Book. Actually, only 3 of the stories in this book are about Mowgli, and the other stories are much less interesting, although a couple of them were readable, I would say. And then we go to non-fiction. We should begin here with Elin Bengtsson, Perversa, tidsligheter. It has an English subtitle as well. A queer temporal study of Ageplay and littleness. So that is what it is. Littleness and Ageplay within BDSM communities. And what's interesting here is that the concept of queer temporalities is a word that I had heard so many times, but I hadn't really got it until I read this book and some other texts by Halberstam and others. And I think that queer temporalities, the idea that you can divert from the normal straight timeline of life, so to speak, and how that is looked down upon, or how that can be upsetting or scaring. I think that fits perfectly as a theoretical framework for my own research into people who like Shota comics, for example. And then for the course, the queer course again, I read 2 Swedish books. One was an introductory book to queer theory. Fanny Ambjörnsson, Vad är queer, from 2006. It sort of follows Anne-Marie Jagosi and Nikki Sullivan, who wrote English introductions, but I think that Ambjörnsson is actually much more pedagogical, maybe because the book is more for the general market and not for academia. And it's also interesting with the Swedish perspective on queer theory and queer studies, because actually Sweden was at the forefront of queer theory along with North America in the 1990s. So that was interesting. Then also Anna Maria Sörberg, Homonationalism, from 2017. That is Homonationalism. Very interesting thing, actually. Gay men turning to right-wing or right extremist parties. But unfortunately, I don't think that Anna Maria Sörberg delves into this. I don't think that she's really interested in it, because it's a very judgmental book, actually written from a clear leftist perspective. I listened to this one as an audiobook at Bokus Play, and it was read by the author, so you could hear how she fires up herself a little bit while she is reading it. And that was actually also the case for the next book, Fredrik Virtanen, Utan nåd, Without Mercy. From 2019, Fredrik Virtanen is a Swedish journalist, and he was at the center of the Swedish Me Too debate. So he was one of the accused, but maybe wrongfully so. And this book is very touching, actually, because he describes how everyone turns against him, how there is so much hatred, and how friends stop returning his emails and so on. I can relate to this, and it is a very good book, I think, and he also describes how he loses faith in humans and humanity at some point. Yeah, what I want to say about this one, I listened to it at Ageplay, read by the author. Okay, let's continue. I read John McWhorter, Woke Racism from 2021, which can sort of be seen as a contrast to D'Angelo's White Fragility, which I read in 2021, and which I was critical against because I thought that D'Angelo describes racism almost as original sin and that anti-racism is like a religion, which is exactly McWhorter's point, namely that wokeism and anti-racism, as it is done today in the US, is not similar to a religion. It is a religion, and he goes on to explain why and to provide the proofs for that, and it's very convincing. And sort of a little bit in the same vein, this one, James Kincaid, Erotic Innocence, sort of did the same in 1998 regarding another subject, which is that his point is that those who claim to be interested in caring about children and protecting children from dangerous people, sort of, are never, ever interested in that. They are only interested in self-gratification. It is self-gratification. So it's very interesting for someone who studies society and people in society to understand the driving forces of why people do what they do. And what do we have more here in the non-fiction category? I read this one from 1984, Janice Radway, Reading the Romance, Women, Patriarchy and Popular Culture. This is a seminal book, an ethnography on women in the US who read romance fiction in the 1970s in the Midwest. And this one is really good. I think that when she published it, it was a little bit revolutionary to actually study these women ethnographically, to actually go into these women and be with them and ask them how they read. That is the question. How do they read romance stories? That's what I ask in my research too. How do they read shorter comics? And the answer here is twofold, namely that they read it in order to be emotionally moved. That's the one leg. And the second leg is in order to escape their apparently miserable lives. So to feel good and to escape. And that's why romance fiction must always adhere to a very strict script of things that should happen and things that should not happen and so on. And if they don't adhere to that, it's not romance. That's how these women argue. The romance genre is such a big genre, actually. It has made so much money. It has been so profitable. So that's also why the publishers were also interested in Radway's study. And she starts the book with explaining the history of publishing and publishing of fiction in the US, which was really interesting to read too. The last non-fiction book I read is, just read it this week or last week, is actually Scott McCloud, Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art. This, from 1994 or 93, is such a classic. And it is explaining what comics do, but it's explaining it as a comic. So that's why this book is so famous, and I finally read it. I'm not a comics buff in any way, but maybe I will become one, because it's so inspiring to read this. And it's not only about comics, I would say, because many of his analysis and theories could be applied to art in general. So this one is highly recommended. And let's go to manga now, because in 2023 I finally read Grappler Baki, the first, which one? Yeah, the first and the second volume, tankobon volumes from 1992. They are by Itagaki Keisuke, and they were serialized in Shonen Champion in Japan. And then they were released as these tankobon volumes. And I think there are maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 or 50 of these. And I will get back to these in other videos because they are interesting in many ways. But it's about a 17-year-old karate kid boy. And then, as I was in Japan, I bought the latest volume of Yankee Shota to Otaku Onesan by Hoshimi Yumi. As you might know, I read the first 6 volumes. This one, the 7th volume, was not so interesting, I think. I think it's slowing down, and as is often the case when a comic is serialized for such a long time. So I guess there must be valleys when nothing happens as well. But yeah, I didn't think this was so interesting. But when I bought this one at Animate in Akihabara, you always get some little gift, and the gift I got was that I was able to pick out a sticker from, I could choose from 10 different stickers or something like that. So I picked a cute sticker, and it said Shota Oni on that sticker. And when I researched what that was, it turned out that it referred to another manga called Shota Oni. So in 2023, I read the first 3 volumes. Actually, first I read the first 2 volumes. And then as I was in Japan, the 3rd volume came out. And this is a BL manga, a boys love manga, but which is Shota focused. So the protagonists are a 17-year-old high school student, a boy, and a 10-year-old boy. And then this is very focused on the romance between this teen and preteen. And what's interesting with this is that when the 3rd volume was released at Animate in Ikebukuro, it was released with huge posters and big shelves only selling this comic. And I bought some special edition, which also came with some little picture book or something extra. I got this as well. And it was me and lots of female high school students, because this manga and the Shota theme in general is trending in Japan right now. That was my impression. And the last manga, actually not the last manga, because I wanted to explore a little bit how manga is read in Japan now. And lots of manga is turning to webcomics and different apps. So I have lots of apps on my phone now. And since Animate, I became a member of Club Animate. And since they send out coupon codes with discounts every now and then, I wanted to take advantage of that. So through one of these 70% coupon codes for e-books or e-manga, I bought Endo, Himitsu no Garu Shota. It turned out to be a doujinshi because it was quite short, a doujinshi that had been picked up by some company and published so that you could read it through Club Animate. Anyway, and then I found this one at random. This is Mugi Imon Motokare ga Fudanshi ni natte orimatte, 2018. But this one just came out in English this year, and I think it's called My Ex-Boyfriend Likes Boys Love Manga or something like that. He became a fudanshi. So this was a bit fun because it is set in the subcultural doujinshi production scene, and that was very interesting. I like manga who are about manga, and this is about the doujinshi culture. So it is what it says. Her ex-boyfriend turns out to be like herself, which is that he likes boys love manga. And then there are lots of dramas about she not revealing that she is in fact the artist behind his favorite BL manga, or his favorite BL doujinshi. Yeah, and that was actually it. So happy New Year. See you later.